So on the 16th of September 2006, when the prison first opened its door to the public, first of all, I was called upon to come and talk about the hangings because locally nobody else kind of knew about the hangings. We didn't expect that many people. We did not know how many people would visit, but close to 1,000, if not more, came to visit. I saw about 25 individual groups that would go around the guided tour, and when they were here, I was talking to them about the hangings, showing them pictures of some of the murderers, and not every time, but I would say about 6 times during that day when I was alone, and never when there was people with me, just when I was alone, the lights would flash. It got to be so funny that at some point in time I started to laugh and I said out loud, well, I guess I'm not alone here. Did not expect anything out of this. But when I left at 6 o'clock, I talked to the group and I asked if there was a problem with the lights in this classroom where the gallows were. And they said no, there was no problem with the electricity, but I did experience something funny. I mean, at least 6 times. And so much so that when I went home, I talked about it. I talked about it for a couple of days because it was a very unique experience, I would say. And I am convinced that, first of all, I never judge the murderers. They were judged, they were hung. I relate stories based on facts, and so I do not fear. I am very comfortable, even if somebody's flashing the lights, and it made me laugh more than anything else, but it did happen, and apparently no problem with the lights.
Decided to join the Phantoms of Yore for an experiment this evening. After writing an article on it, I was so fascinated by what they did. They invited me to partake, and I got to be taken in as a prisoner with a bag on my head. I sat in solitary, I sat in a jail cell, I talked to the warden, and we recorded the whole thing. I didn't see much because it was very dark. Hear things? I have a very noisy head, so I'm not sure. I don't know. I always kind of hear things, but I did smell things. Weird things, cigarette smoke at some point. And it did feel really weird on many occasions. It's a very old place. I'm sitting alone in the dark for over 30 minutes. So it did feel kind of strange at some point.
So on Friday, the 12th of October, 1883, Frederick Mann, a teenage boy from England, was executed for the quadruple murder of the Cook's family in Châteaubriand. The motive is never very clear. It could be because of the young girl Emma. If she turned him down, maybe that's what the problem was. John Maxwell, his lawyer, was lawyer here in Montreal, prepared for insanity defense before anyone was called as a witness. He pleaded guilty. But before he was hung, and because he was sentenced right away, he wrote a poem to his mom, which he signed "A Wicked, Sinful Boy." Apparently a large crowd of people attended the hanging, and some even went over with the ladders, were trying to see. The guy was not even an adult. He was a teenager, and he was very remorseful, but he was still hung. Châteaubriand, it happened on the 2nd of January, 1883. Beside killing 4 people from the same family, after this murder with an axe in the barn, he went to a house and he hurt one of the boys. Him and 1 or 2 of his sisters, they got him to get away, and he was caught the next day in La Chute, I believe.
Hi, my name is Guy Rouleau. I'm proud enough to say that I was a court interpreter and translator on staff with the Attorney General here in Ontario for over 35 years. It has been my pleasure to make the acquaintance of inmates that have frequented the L'Orignal jail complex over the years. L'Orignal jail complex is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, jail complex here in Ontario, and certainly has, from what I've heard in any event, many secrets, both known by the community and some that are hidden. I'll be talking about those little secrets that are basically hidden from the community at large, that were related to me by different inmates at different times that I've had the occasion and pleasure to befriend over the years, and that have been quite candid in their comments about what they saw from a paranormal standpoint here at the old L'Orignal jail. These three inmates that I can recall over the years, over my past 35 years, spoke to me about the same exact phenomena that would have occurred at the same exact location at the old L'Orignal jail over the span of 35 years. And I'm saying that to dispel any belief that people that are listening to me might think that there might have been some collusion amongst those three individuals that related to me their stories over the years. These are three individuals that did not know each other, that were up for charges that were unrelated, and that were serving a sentence, albeit brief, here at the L'Orignal jail at different years and at different times of the year. This being said, and they all had one commonality, was that they had seen a mist, what I would term it as a spectral aura that would appear right immediately behind me, which is what is called the southern exit of the L'Orignal jail. It's a spectral aura that was, from what they told me, colorless, but had a definite shape to it, with outlines, an outline that was type of blackish and gray. This aura would appear in between 12 noon and 2 p.m. in the afternoon. They were all unanimous in mentioning that, and they had told me as they were going by the prisoners' exercise yard, and apparently they were not the only ones to see it, because their friends also in the exercise yards had bunched together to see that. They were not the only ones, but they were surrounded by a tiny crowd of those prisoners that were allowed out in the exercise yard once lunch had been over and done with. And this spectral figure did not move, did not do anything, but just appeared there, was there, and they saw it quite distinctly. But they saw that spectral figure, it was there, it was of a, as I say, a semi-solid form, and as I say, when I make a movement with my hand, it seemed as if there was sort of like a head. They all described the same thing. It was rounded out the head and just like a tad bit of the shoulders, and then straight down like this. Now, there are many people that in the L'Orignal jail over the course of many years, one of the oldest jails, if not the oldest jail in Ontario, has seen its share of deaths, suicides in the jail. Of course, many murderers came through the L'Orignal jail, were hanged very much nearby the L'Orignal jail at the time. One of the very last hangings saw the local sheriff hand over tickets, because that's what happened at that point in time. They handed tickets to individuals in the local community to attend the hanging that was called for by the existing government and legal authorities at that time, because of the principle that if a death sentence was handed down, the justice system and the judicial apparatus had as its mission to prove to the society at large that justice had been carried out. And they did this by handing out I say tickets, but they're casual invitations, if you wish, as gore as this might sound, for people to attend the hanging, to see those that were convicted being hanged, and then going out and proclaiming to the community at large that justice had been done. So the L'Orignal jail saw its share of that. Many deaths also within the complex itself, many deaths during the years. Are these spectral apparitions tied to any of those events? I do not know, but I can tell you that as a fact, that 3 individuals, over the course of my 35 years with the Attorney General, told me on 3 different occasions, unrelated offenses that they were serving, that they saw the same thing at the same exact spot where I'm standing in right now in between 12 noon and 2 p.m.
So the second hanging took place on the 4th of June 1891, where Narcisse Larocque was executed for the rape and murder of 12 and 13-year-old Mary and Lisa McGonigal. He showed no remorse whatsoever, none. Asked at the very last minute by the priest whether he had anything to say, he said no. He was apparently looking at the crowd. So when the priest started reciting the prayers, Mr. Hangman Radcliffe didn't even wait. He just dropped the weight and sent him up there. Apparently it took about 10 minutes for him to die. And while he's roaming the place, the hangman's roaming the place, the father of the little girls was on the lot, and he went over and he pulled on the body like he was mad. He was pulling on the body just to kill him faster kind of thing, you know. But this guy apparently had no remorse whatsoever for what he did. And apparently his murder was a gruesome murder. It was not just rape and kill. It was awful. It's called The Day the Devil Visited Cumberland, Ontario. It's very interesting, has a lot of pictures in there. There's even pictures of girls' hands, because when they were doing the autopsy, they were trying to get the fingerprints and they couldn't really show it, so they actually cut the hands of the little girl to show the extent of the
struggle.
Yes, of the struggle the girl went through.
Hi, my name is Jake Shapiro. I'm the founding member of the Clarence Rockland Ghostbusters. We were invited by Phantoms of Yore to come down and participate in a paranormal experiment. We were given a set of instructions and a map of the facility, and the instructions, we had tasks that we had to complete. So once we went in the prison, we were completely in the dark. We only had lighting provided from night lights that were on in the prison. Once we found where we were supposed to go with the directions, we would find a picture attached to a wall or an item of a ghost from the Ghostbusters film. On the back was further instructions on how to use the equipment and what type of activity they want us to do. So some of our experiments were either using a camera or using a recording device or more specialized ghost detecting equipment like a REM pod or a K2 or a spirit box. We did about 5 different tasks, including my partner and myself being separated from top floor to bottom floor and doing solo sessions investigating in the cell blocks. Neither of us had ever done anything like this. Both of us, besides being fans of the Ghostbusters franchise, also have some interests in the real world paranormal. So for us to come down and do this was just an incredible opportunity, and we were very excited to be a part of it. On the way down, we were talking about, what we could be expecting, what we were going to see inside the prison, what would it look like. We knew the prison was 200 years old, so we weren't sure in what condition it would be in. So we were going in very blind. We didn't know very much what was going on. Upon arrival, it's a very impressive building. It's a beautiful heritage building, despite being a prison. Upon arrival, we had an open mind. We were talking, we had both seen the paranormal shows you see on TV, and there's always kind of the hype and question whether what they're showing on TV is, actually what they're experiencing. So we were going in pretty much open-minded, hoping to see something, but we also thought, well, maybe we'll go in and we'll walk out and be like, I didn't really hear or see anything, or see anything that would change our mind as to whether the paranormal does or doesn't exist. Went to various places where it gave us the details of, if someone passed away in the cell, if there was a suicide, that sort of thing. And being alone in the cell blocks, knowing that people have passed away for sure, it's a bit of a funny feeling, because at no point did I feel afraid to be in there, but it was a sense of that you were occupying the space that somebody had spent part of their life in, or the end of their life in, and the emotions and that they would feel. I almost felt empathetic to what they would have experienced. As far as physical responses, I didn't feel anybody touch me, or I didn't feel any hair rise up on the back of my neck or feel any tingles. I didn't have any physical response. There was, when we entered the upstairs, I believe it's D block, there is a infant's crib that's up there, and it's made out of solid metal. It's very functional. It doesn't look very comfortable, and I have children myself, and it brought a great sense of sadness to me. While I was doing some of my questioning in that area, I asked questions like, do you know where you are, what year it is? And there was quite a few times where pretty sure I heard something, and to me that was, there's always in the back of your head, well, is it an animal? It's an old building, maybe there's a squirrel running around, or is it pipes, or is it something like that? But some of them were, pretty hard to explain away that they were anything mechanical or whatnot. And again, at no point did I really feel afraid or scared to be in there, but I was feeling that, how can I say, almost joyous that perhaps I am speaking to somebody, perhaps I am connecting to somebody who's no longer with us. We also heard footsteps on the stairwell outside the block. That got me excited, because at this point we're thinking that maybe there is some activity going on. There's something to this. So once we left the prison, on our way home we talked about the experience, and we both thought it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We both really enjoyed it. The Phantoms of Yore crew were very helpful, very friendly, and set us up, and we had a really good time. On the way home, we talked about some of the noises we heard, like the footsteps. There was times when we'd hear something, and my partner and I would look at each other, and the look is, did you hear that? And it was a look of surprise. So we didn't see anything visual, so we weren't surprised that we didn't see anything, visual, like a full-bodied apparition or a mist or something like that. My partner did see a cell door move, so that was pretty interesting. But we did talk about how that some of the noises were just, to us, unexplainable at the time, and we were surprised how loud and clear some of them were. Although at the time we couldn't pinpoint what it was, we definitely knew we heard something. A few days later, the Phantoms of Yore crew sent us a couple of video clips and audio clips of our experiment and our investigation, and they picked out a couple of interesting pieces. There's a few segments where we ask questions, and then moments later we get a response. And when you listen to the audio recordings, some of them are very clear. Some of them you have to listen to a few times, but you can figure out what's being said, or close to what's being said. They presented to us quite a few recordings, and at the time of this interview, they're still reviewing. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing more. But me and my partner were both surprised at how much has actually come from our experiment. That they are actually getting evidence that there was people responding to our questions. There's one clip where I asked them to do a knock, and I knocked 3 times, and then, you know, seconds later, it's very clear on the audio recording, we get a 3 knocks. So it's super exciting to see that, you know, we just didn't walk into a building and, you know, spend an hour and a half looking at the walls. That, you know, potentially there's definitely something here. Make a noise. Make a banging noise like that. Even a little one. Okay, audio recording. Thought I heard something coming from the corridor.
Hi, my name is Vicky Dubois. I am a registered nurse. I graduated in 1993 from Ottawa U. I got a job as a jail nurse here in Royal in '94, and I worked here as a nurse until the closing in '98. Worked with a colleague for a while, and then she went on maternity leave. Well, I was pregnant with my first daughter, and so I was working alone all this time until she came back. And during this time, I was in my office at the back in the new wing, and where there's also an office for the social worker. There's a classroom, there's the employee break room, and the laundry. So my office is last one on the left, right next to the courtyard. And one day after I finished seeing the inmates for the day, I was doing paperwork, writing notes and stuff, and I could just see, like, the way the place was set up is that I had my office with all the regular safety precautions, the way the desk was set up, the panic button and stuff, and that left no room for the exam table. So the way it was set up is the exam table was right in the hall, and there were curtains around it, like just regular, like, hospital curtains. So anyways, I was writing my notes, and I could just, from the corner of my eye, I could see something. So I just lifted up, and I could see the curtains moving. And this was like in the spring, and there's a door right at the end of that corridor where the medical the exam table is. So, but it was closed, obviously, because it was still too cold out to be open. So I kind of just dismissed it. You know, there's always this eerie feeling around here, and you hear stuff, but you know, everything was fine. So by the time I was doing my notes, actually, the classroom was over, so the inmates that were in the classroom had returned to their cells. The laundry room, the inmates were done in there also for the day, so they had returned to their cells, so I knew that that was empty. There was no social worker that day, and there was nobody on break, so I was essentially alone in that wing doing my work. And these things, I remember thinking these things because I'm like, okay, so it can't be anybody, so I must have seen something, like I must have imagined it, you know, peripheral vision or whatever. So I continued doing my notes, and a few seconds later, I lifted up my head, and again, I could definitely see the, it was almost as if somebody was behind the curtains and just walking out, like, close to the curtains or whatever, but I could see something like a wave. And I had a bit of a eerie chill kind of a thing. Anyways, my door was open, the door to my office was open, so I just kind of, like, you know, looked out, and there's nobody. I checked it. Right across is the staff room, so I checked, and there's nobody there. Because you actually have to go into that wing, you used to have to buzz to get into, like, I'd have to wait at the corner of actually the cell right here, because this is the door to the new unit, and you'd have to wait. So you definitely heard the buzz. So if somebody was going to come in, you would hear them being buzzed in, even if my door was closed. So I knew there was nobody, but nonetheless, I got up and I kind of walked around. I checked in the laundry, I checked in the classroom, checked in the social worker's office, and then again in the break room, and kind of listened to see if there's somebody in the bathroom or whatever. And I really got that eerie feeling, you know, wasn't sure what it was at the time because I hadn't read up on anything paranormal or whatever, but now I guess it's what they say, you know, when you have a spirit next to you or close to you, you have that, like, the hairs on the back of your neck, or you feel cold, or so anyways, I felt weird anyways. So, but I was like, okay, is there anybody here? I don't know why, but I felt like I had to talk to whatever was there. And still trying to convince myself that I really see that. And I'm like, yeah, you saw that. So anyways, I was just kind of like asking it questions, and never really, I didn't see the curtains move again or nothing. And that was that for that day, but it made me think a lot. So later that day, one of the guards came into the break room, and I told him what I'd seen, and he's like, well, you know that right outside your office used to be where they would hang people. Well, interesting. I wasn't sure what to think about that, but definitely gave me a new respect for things unseen, and whatever people are feeling around here, I do believe I've experienced some of it.
Okay, so the third hanging took place on the 28th of April, 1904. Clément Goyette was executed for the murder of Danielle and Thomas Colligan, father and son, on the 24th of January, 1904. That Sunday morning, a storm prevented the Colligan family to go to church. They were very Catholic. Colligan and Monsieur Goyette, they played poker, and they were drinking. And around 6 p.m., the young boy, Thomas, and Monsieur Goyette went out to start the milking the animals, the cows, and feed the animals. And then later on, Mr. Colligan went to join them, and there was some sort of an argument about overfeeding the horses and what have you. And Goyette said, no, I didn't. And he said, yes, I'm the boss. You're going to do as I say. Anyway, he was mad, and he started like attacking Mr. Colligan. And the young boy did not like that, so he took a stick and hit Goyette on the head. Now he got livid. And he took a broadaxe, a 14-inch broadaxe, and literally cut Mr. Colligan the way you would cut a piece of wood. And I know that because I've read the transcripts, and that's the way the autopsy describes the cutting of Mr. Colligan. Now, once he was done with Colligan, he swung his axe. So therefore, he cut the boy half of his face and killed both of them. Then he went in the house. He was, remember, a little bit drunk. He went in the house, took a little axe that you used to do kindling. It had broken the day before, so it was just fixed with wires, and it was not well done anyway. So he started hitting Mrs. Colligan with the axe, and it fell. So what he did is he shut the door with nails, shut it closed. In the meantime, there's an 11-year-old Teresa Colligan that took her siblings, took them upstairs to a room. And apparently there was a problem with the doorknob, so she knew that, so she took it off, and he was not able to go in the room. So she had taken her siblings, except for a baby that was left in the cradle. And so Mrs. Colligan and her oldest daughter, Elizabeth, were kind of with this guy. She was trying to give him more to drink. They went upstairs to get some money. He wanted some money. And apparently he fell on the staircase. And they came back down. Mrs. Colligan is not in good shape at all. She's bleeding. She's not good. He's ordering Elizabeth to get undressed. She doesn't do it. She keeps feeding him some liquor, trying to calm him. In the meantime, Teresa, when she's upstairs, she actually jumped. But because of the storm, there was a lot of snow apparently. So anyway, she went to the neighbors and got help. And the neighbor were related to the other neighbors on the other side, so they came, 3 men together. Actually, they broke the door down, and they stopped him, and they asked him what happened. Where's Daniel? And he said, I killed him. And then they said, where's Thomas? I killed him also. He was taken to Alfred, where there was a hotel. Actually, the hotel's still there. Somebody was hired to stay with him the whole night. And the next day he was brought back to the house for preliminary, whatever you call it. Mrs. Colligan didn't want to see him. The bodies of the 2 men were in the house. That's where the autopsy took place. Mrs. Colligan didn't want to see him, so they just put her behind the door, so they were kind of back to back. But she could hear what he had to say, and he could hear what she had to say. Goyette, when he was in the prison, later on said that it was all because of the drinking that this happened. It should never have happened. However, he had a temper like this because he was accused before that in Montreal of trying to kill a policeman. So it was not like it was not new to him. Drinking and him did not work together. He asked for forgiveness. The day before his hanging, he did ask Mrs. Colligan for forgiveness. He wrote a will and left the very few things that he had to his daughter. And he left the priest of L'Orignal, priest Berube, I believe. He left him a picture of his daughter. The papers described the walk in the hallways and all the way down to the gallows, or right here in this place here, and he could apparently see where he was going to be buried. But he was very sorry. He apologized and he asked for forgiveness. He became very religious in his last days. So the last hanging, the one that most people around here know about, William Larocque and Emmanuel Lavictoire, they were hung on the 15th of March 1933 for the murder of Léo Bergeron on the 18th of March 1932. They were not trialed for the murder of Athanas Lamarche in 1930, on the 4th of October. However, all the facts were brought in to prove that they had killed him. As a matter of fact, they took his body out of the ground at an autopsy and found out that his skull was cut open. The duo was killing for insurance. Not necessarily easy to insure those boys, but they did insure them, and that's why they were killing them. In the case of the young Bergeron, he was hired and he didn't want to go. He feared Monsieur Larocque, and but he was told that he owed him money and he had to go do some threshing, and anyway, they set it all up so that it looked like the horses stepped on him. However, there was marks of forks and what have you, so he was killed not by the horses, but some other way. When the hanging took place, Monsieur Lavictoire was hung first, and apparently it took about 20 minutes to die. And they say, or they reported, that it was probably because he had lost a lot of weight. He was a very nervous man. He was crying all the time. And remember, he was not guilty. He was not guilty. He was not the murderer. He was guilty by association with Monsieur Larocque, because he was kind of watching while the murder was taking place. And anyway, so he took a long time, and the priest here in L'Orignal wrote in his diary that it was the most awful thing he had ever seen, that it was not human to die that way. 20 minutes is way too long. Anyway, and then when Monsieur Larocque came up for his hanging, the one thing he said was, "You killed an innocent."